Crossover. When two or more fictional worlds collide, showing off what would happen. Power scaling. Taking a fictional character and using real-world math and science to see how strong the character would be. Fight Club. A movie about man's inner turmoil with himself. Seeing him as two different people. An idolized self and what he actually is. Despite this, he is still the same person. The question of who would win has been asked since the beginning of the internet. There's always going to be a group of people dedicated to find out who would win between their two favorite fictional characters. One of these people is the GOAT. Cartoon Fight Club. Animation Rewind, the creator of Cartoon Fight Club, started his YouTube channel on September 1st, 2011, starting off with animation parodies of kids' TV shows and movies. But this all changed in 2015, February 6th, when he posted the first episode of Cartoon Fight Club, Knuckles vs. Wario. The concept was simple and has been done before. Have two or more fictional characters fight to see who would win. There were some oddities, like he sometimes allowed prep time for some characters, he always specified the location of the fight, and what equipment they had. His earlier videos showcase this by having two separate fights from Mario and Luigi versus Sonic and Tails. Yes, he did Wario vs. Knuckles, then Mario and Luigi vs. Sonic and Tails. One fight had no power-ups, taking place in the Mushroom Kingdom and having no prep time, while the other fight had them use power-ups in Green Hill Zone with the prep time. Sounds like I'm describing a clue murder. Mario and Sonic matchups made up the majority of the fights during the start of Cartoon Fight Club, probably because they got them the most views. In fact, out of the first 20 episodes, 7 of them are just Mario and Sonic characters fighting, with one even being a meme version of Sonic. We'll get into that later. In these early animations, he used a software with rigging animations, so these older fights usually just involves two shitty images standing there with their fists moving back and forth. But by the time he got to the second Mario and Sonic fight, he started using sprites. This definitely makes it a better episode than the previous episode. Also, things that are brought up in the analysis are used in the fight, which I always like to see in verses. Anyway, the fight ended a draw, which led to a sudden death with just Mario and Sonic in their strongest forms, which Sonic wins by teleporting Mario to the sun. Finally, he ended the Mario vs. Sonic saga with a total war between the strongest Sonic characters with Eggman's army against the strongest Mario characters with Bowser's army, which also ends in a tie. Wow, with the end of that, I sure hope we don't see any repeat characters chasing trends. Speaking of trends, since the beginning of Cartoon Fight Club, he has always used different memes in his fight. His first meme fight was Sonic vs. Sonic.exe. This episode is great because it has Sonic.exe get absolutely destroyed by Sonic using meme powers. The second fight is with memes, is Sonic vs. Luigi, which is just nonsense for anyone who hasn't grown up with this.
Long live spaghetti!
These videos did get him a lot of views, and memes would be used more and more until dying off. Anyway, Goku. Goku's first appearance is in Goku vs. Naruto, which is one of my personal favorites. I like how in the animation, Naruto takes off one of Goku's arms, which I think is pretty cool because it shows that it's just not a one-sided beatdown. It also shows that Naruto is using certain strategy in the fight. Animation Rewind says this happens because of prep time, but I still think it's pretty cool. Then he appears in Goku vs. Sonic, which is not good at all, until he finally fights Superman. This episode is mostly just a response / debunking to the points brought up at the newest death battle, Superman vs. Goku. He mostly just debunks argument that Superman has infinite strength, unless it's the old Superman, which he just calls an uninteresting Gary Stu. I love this community. As I mentioned, Goku would continue fighting, being one of the characters Cartoon Fight Club continuously uses. Fighting Saitama, another one of Power Scaling's biggest faces. Saitama was also used heavily from 2017-2019, and his fights were used in compilations. Cartoon Fight Club would reuse some animations, putting them in compilations. I don't mind this too much because he has to make his money somehow, and he was hiring animators trying to make his content more high quality. But sometimes I do think it crosses the line, especially with him reusing entire fights, like with Sans and Papyrus versus Shrek and Donkey being reused entirely, and Mario and Luigi versus Sans and Papyrus, or just full-on analysis segments being copied and pasted. Also reused combatants. Reused combatants. By far the most used character in series in Cartoon Fight Club history is Undertale, specifically Sans. Not counting Battle Royales, Sans has been in Cartoon Fight Club 30 times. Now, Animation Rewind says this is because of high demand, but it was obvious that he's just using it for views. 3 episodes I want to highlight in this Undertale madness is Sans vs. Bill 1, Sans and Papyrus versus Mario and Luigi 2, and Chara versus the FNAF Squad. These are some of my favorite Cartoon Fight Club episodes, with Sans and Bill being one of my favorites because of the interactions. The fight isn't all too good with just 3D renders hitting each other over and over, but the characters do the funniest things, and I just think it's pretty cool. Side note, I do like it in Versus shows when we get to see the personality and the characters interact, which I think is one of my favorite parts in Versus. Most of his other episodes don't have this, which I think is the biggest problem with Cartoon Fight Club. With Sans and Papyrus versus Mario and Luigi 2, it takes a bad episode and makes it 100 times better by having actual original animation. Also, the character writing is pretty good, with all the good characterization for both Sans and Papyrus. Finally, I like to see Chara versus the FNAF animatronics because it takes one OP character versus many, and it makes actual sense, unlike his other animations where one character fights many. I just think that Chara mowing down animatronics is cool. I'd also like to think that this was an inspiration for Frisk when he fought the animatronics in Indie Cross, but it's definitely not. Cartoon Fight Club later said that he'd stop overusing characters, only including characters like Sans and Goku once every 2 months, but he also said that he would not stop including them in Battle Royales. Battle Royales were fights including a hodgepodge of characters, usually from indie games, memes, and internet creepypastas, aka the things that got on the most views. And that's usually what these things refer, having repeated animations, not using the best animations, not dissing the animator. It takes a while to hone your skills, and most of these animators have gone on to do better. Something I do want to mention is this video series called Ultimate Showdown, which I believe is based on this old video on Newgrounds with the same name. Very cute. But this series tried to use every single character from every Versus series to find out who would win. A little story of mine is when I watched this when I was younger, in the description of these videos, he listed each Versus series on YouTube, which I'm going to try to watch every single one of them. This is probably why I'm such a big fan of Versus in general. Anyway, the series ended after episode 5 and never concluded. During 2017, Animation Rewind would release his 3rd season of Cartoon Fight Club, promising a whole new era of quality. He started this out by posting much more high-quality content, like Smash Bros. Versus PlayStation All-Stars and Ruby versus Maka. He even had any animation battle royale, which had Chara lose, a common complaint that she was too overpowered, and never lost. Well, almost immediately afterwards, Animation Rewind reversed this decision, deciding to no longer have this type of quality control. His words, not mine.
Rewind Rumble, where the Season 3 format is taking place, the quality format, so check that out. Click the top link. Be sure to subscribe to my new channel, Rewind Rumble, because I have a brand new series coming to that channel that's
and would instead have this type of quality control on his second channel, Rewind Rumble. Rewind Rumble is fine, but it still has the problem of no dialogue and has not been uploaded in a year. So what would become of his first channel after this? Awful. The answer is awful. Cartoon Fight Club started to fall down hard, becoming like a content farm. We're using a lot more segments, and while there were still some aspects of quality, it felt mostly like he stopped caring. Even episodes that I call good were ruined by unfunny memes in Family Guy. In the Deltarune vs. Baldi's Basics Total War, not only is each segment followed by a Family Guy meme, but every single second there's some unfunny meme or Fortnite dance. Side note, having the principal be a blue attack is a stroke of genius that I hope to accomplish one day. I don't know. Having a channel that you once loved being reduced to unfunny memes and trend chasing sucks. I mean, you could say that with the older videos, but at least they had heart. At least their mistakes were the first and not a series of it.